He's ahead of us, and we're very hopeful that things are going to go well. I don't know whether we're headed for a winning season or not. I think we need to talk more about proficiency and skills. So I just want to share a few things that bother me a little bit about proficiency. Now, in that November presentation that Mr. Scotto did, we reduced everything in the NJSLA into one slide here. And even that was a little disturbing because it shows that only 38% overall of our students are proficient in ELA activities or skills, and only 26%
Mr.
overall.
Muka, I apologize, and I do not mean to interrupt you. I just have a question in regards, as I stated, it has to be on an agenda item. I have no problem with you continuing, but is this related to a question or a comment on what is on the agenda for this evening? If not, I just asked you to make the comments in the second hearing of the public.
Well, I'm happy to make the comments in the second period also, but I believe we had a curriculum committee report, and the question regards how effective is the curriculum.
Okay. So we always have curriculum committee reports as well as other reports. It's based on agenda items, so it's the things that we would be voting on this evening.
All right, you're asking me to step down?
Is it a question in regards to something that is on the agenda for this evening?
It's a statement in regard to the proficiency of our students and how they have to compete, and the curriculum has a lot to do with that, and how effective we are teaching the math curriculum, and we're teaching the ELA curriculum.
Okay, so Mr. Muga, that sounds like it's something on school-related matters. If you'd like to come back up on the second hearing of the public, I'd be more than happy to add you to the list if you're already not there.
I would be very happy to come up in the second hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Muka. I appreciate that.
Greetings, everybody. As you saw at the August school board meeting, my third attempt to get attention on our poor testing performance was cut short by Board President Dina Thornton as a violation of the agenda items only rule. Well, this is the first time I heard that agenda items were only agenda items being voted on. And of course, most people have no idea how controlled public comments are at one of our school board meetings. Officially, there are just 2 hearings of the public. Each totals 20 minutes, and each speaker gets a maximum of 4 minutes. I was the only one signed up for that first hearing that evening, so the other 16 minutes was just canceled. Now, the board policy is also to never answer any questions or make any comments about what's said. And usually anything you say is just never spoken of again. It's like how strange it would be to throw a big rock into a pond and not hear a sound or see a ripple. Now, I did get my 4 minutes in the second hearing, which is added at the end of this video. Now, we all like to think that we have great public schools in Hamilton, and traditionally we have had them. But now mandatory New Jersey skills testing has repeatedly shown since COVID that we are falling short. And the 2024 results show that 15 out of 24 of our schools are actually bottom third performers compared to all other New Jersey public schools. And this fact includes 10 of 18 of our elementary schools, all 3 of our middle schools, and 2 out of 3 of our high schools. Now, these numbers are not secret. They're publicly available from the New Jersey Department of Education. They often find their way into school ratings that show up in places like Google or the Great School Reviews or NewJersey.com articles. They're also used by real estate sites like Zillow to help people decide what neighborhood to move into. One place where they are never mentioned is at our Hamilton School Board. Now, Jessica Trombino, Kyle Chadwick, and myself are running for school board to change that, as well as many other important aspects of our Hamilton public schools. The state scores not only tell us how we rank compared to the rest of New Jersey schools, they also tell us about the actual student skill levels we have compared to what's expected as grade level proficiencies. And in fact, Director of Curriculum, Mr. Scotto, presented a summary of how all 12,000 of our students were doing last November. These 2 purple columns shown here have a very important message for us. But unfortunately, as you look at it, it's in a whisper, and it's not the shout that it should be. Now, Mr. Scotto wasn't able to attend the presentation that night. He sent it in on a video. There was no chance of even the board asking any questions or discussing anything, much less any public comments. Now you have to wonder why Board President Dina Thornton, along with Dr. McSheen and the rest of the board, was okay with that. I was there and I was shocked that no one asked to have it postponed until Mr. Scotto could be there in person. This is a common failing of our board members, not asking the right questions at the right time. Now this proficiency scale has 5 levels. There are 3 categories of actually not being proficient at grade level. Did not yet meet the expectations, partially met, and approached the expectations. Now whether you have none, some, or not quite all of the expected skills, it really all falls together in the same category of did not meet the expectations. Similarly, the other 2 categories met or exceeded expectations. Well, they really could just be one category together. So imagine that you run a driver's education school and your students need to demonstrate 9 basic skills on the road test. Here's how that would look as according to the levels. Level 1 met none of the skills, so couldn't do any of the 9. Level 2 partially met the skills, which means they did some but not all, and approached. The students were able to do more but still missed a few of the requirements for the roads test. Level 4 and level 5 met all and then maybe exceeded by doing something beyond what was expected in the road test. So by redoing Mr. Scotto's chart, we can make it start to shout the message that Hamilton, we have a problem here. So let's make the numbers bigger, and then let's combine the top 2 categories into met or exceeded expectations, and the bottom 3 into did not meet all the expectations. When you do this addition, you get these results. So we end up showing that 38% are proficient at grade level for the ELA, the English Language Arts requirements. But at the same time, 62% are not proficient. And the same with math. It shows 26% of math students meet the requirements or exceed them, but 74% do not really meet all the requirements necessary. And just even another startling thing about these figures is there's 18% and 21% of the students in the lowest category have met none of the expectations. Now, we have a big school system here of 12,000 students. If we start to translate the percentages into numbers of students, we can see it in a more dramatic way on just what the impact is. So if we do that and do the math, it shows us that 7,560 of our ELA students are not proficient at grade level. And 9,000 students are not proficient, completely proficient at their grade level. And you can even see there at the bottom, you can see the several thousand students in each category that are proficient at none of the requirements of their grade level. So what does this all mean? It means we have a problem here. We have a big problem, and it's impacting a lot of people in our community. Of course, the students, their parents, their families, but it means a lot of difficulties for our Hamilton community as well, whether you live here or whether you work here or have a business here. Now, we can begin to apply the same style of thinking more specifically to 3 of our schools. I mean, the data is available for all 24, but let's just take a look at 3. Let's look at Yardville. Yardville is our best school. It's a 80.94 percentile, which means it's ranked better than 80% of the schools in New Jersey. And yet, when you look at the columns of proficient versus non-proficient, there's a startling amount of a percentage of kids that are not able to perform the skills at their grade level when they were tested. So 48.9, 35, and 42.2 for grades 3 through 5, not proficient. And math, similarly, 36.1, 45, and 53% of the 5th graders couldn't do all the required skills to show proficiency at their 5th grade level. Robinson Elementary is one of our bottom 3rd schools. It's ranked at a 24%, which means it's only better than 24% of the other schools in New Jersey. So look at these skills, these proficiencies. You know, about half of the class is not proficient at their required ELA skills at the Robinson School. And for the math, 70% or more of the students pretty much are not able to do all the math skills that are required. And finally, let's look at our worst school, which is Grice. Very low rating, ranking at 7%. So 93% of schools in New Jersey are better than Grice in terms of what the students can do on this testing. And you can see it in the ELA scores, not proficient. 60% or more are not proficient in grades 6, 7, and 8 at the ELA requirements. And even more dramatic is the problems with the math. 80% or worse are the numbers there. And 92.6% of the 8th graders are not fully proficient at math in 8th grade. So what's to become of them as they try to move forward in life and attempt to even learn the basics of how to do the things that you need to do every day? We also see that 45% of the grade 8 class at Grice at that time did not show any of the 8th grade requirements when they were tested. This is all a very complicated problem. But you know, complicated problems need more attention than the easy ones, not less. It won't get better if we talk in whispers about this instead of out loud and in a lot of different ways. If my driver's ed students were failing the road test 62% of the time or 74% of the time, and 18% or 20% of them couldn't do any of the 9 expected driving skills, I would certainly know that I had a huge problem and I would have to start to take some action about it. I'd have to start working to figure out why my students aren't learning what they need to know. Now, obviously, the current incumbents who are part of the 8-person majority on the board, they've spent years of ignoring this problem. And to get better schools sooner, we're going to need 3 new people on the board. Jessica, Kyle, and I are running because we can see clearly this skill proficiency problem among many others. We need to put the 3 of us on the board to restore balance and a diversity of thought on this issue and so many of the others. Now, our program has some very basic points. We'd like to have school board meetings where questions are answered and not derailed on technicalities. We'd like to have town hall meetings where we can gather together and discuss at length and have questions and answers and learn about the problems and what we need to do about them. We need to learn from our best schools and translate that ability to some of the schools that are not doing so well. We'd like to remove the barriers of these failed policies and strategies that are just getting in the way of learning. We want to connect teachers, students, and parents together more effectively. We certainly need more VOTEC and vocational training opportunities because not everybody is going to be going to college. And we definitely need a true strategic plan for our facilities so that we can fix and build just what we need for the future and do it in the right way. Now, we're doing everything we can to get elected, but we need your help. And you can help by doing one or more of these things. So come on out to our public events and see what we're all about, and talk to us, ask questions, and learn more about the campaign. If you can, volunteer some time to help with the various chores we have to do just to get the word out. If you have the resources, please consider donating online or send us a check. And very importantly, get the word out. It's very difficult in Hamilton with such a big budget being spent. There's so many people that are connected to the schools and are a little bit afraid to talk about what's going on. So help us get the word out, and we'll go on to victory and get those 3 seats in November so we can start making these changes. All right, so take a couple minutes to see what happened during the second hearing of the public at that August meeting, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
John Muka?
John Muka, I'm a lifelong resident of Hamilton, and as I was saying, at the November school board meeting, Mr. Scotto presented some scores from the New Jersey's SLA scores, and I was kind of surprised by how many students were not proficient. I was also surprised by the fact that Mr. Scotto wasn't actually there, that it was done by a video. So there was no opportunity to ask any questions or have any discussion. I would have expected that somebody on the board would have said, if Mr. Scotto can't be here tonight, we should do it at the next meeting. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So in March of this year, reading the NewJersey.com as I do, I found out that the scores were now available online. So I assume Mr. Scotto knew these scores in detail in November, but I don't know. At that point, I made a copy of the scores showing all of our schools. I sent them to all members of the school board. Essentially got no reaction, and certainly nobody seemed to be perturbed by the fact that Grice is a 7 percentile school, and at the other end, we have 80 percentile schools. Now, from my background, that's an interesting problem to try to deal with. So how can we do so good in one situation and so poorly in the other? There was no discussion on that. In June, I presented this chart at the board meeting here and sent copies to everybody, and there's still no meaningful reaction to that. So I continue to look into things, looked at our Yardville school scores in detail, and it's our best school. And in our best school, grade 3, 48% of the students are not proficient at grade level. At grade 4, 35%, and at grade 5, 42% in English language arts. And in math, at our best school, grade 3, 36 are not proficient, 45% are not proficient in grade 4, and in grade 5, more than half of the students are not proficient. So I think we have a problem. That's our best school, and that rated at 80%, at 80 percentile in New Jersey. So I also compared it to Grice. And of course, the scores are not that good at Grice. And in fact, I'll just point out that grade 8, according to the 2024 testing, only 7.4% of the students were proficient at grade level at Grice. So this is a disturbing thing. I think that it should be investigated. I think that the president of the school board, along with the superintendent, should be making this a regular agenda item so that we can have discussions about what to do about it. We have to pay attention to these scores because they're about the skills. So if I was running a driver's ed school and only 6%, 7% of my students passed their driver's test, I know I have a problem. I have to do something about that. And even so, with only 30% of the students not being proficient, that's still a big problem. Now, I just had a couple looking at the house across the street from mine past weekend, and I happened to be outside, and my son-in-law gestured them to come over and talk to me as a long-term resident. What was their first question? How are the schools in Hamilton? And I said, well, I have to be honest with you, there's a lot of good reasons to live in Hamilton. Right now, schools is not particularly one of the better reasons. And I'm sorry to have to say that to people. But that doesn't mean it's all over. We have great people, we have great teachers. And by the way, the Pace Charter School, which has a characteristic population very similar to Grice, they're at an 80 percentile. So there's some way to do that. We need to learn to teach all the students, no matter what their background is, and help them all succeed, and not take time to avoid looking at the reality of some of these situations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Muka.